Item number 7, intergovernmental agreement. Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2009-085, Amendment Number 1 to the Intergovernmental Agreement with Arizona Department of Transportation for the Snyder Boulevard and Coronado Drive multi-use path be approved.
Second.
Mr. Scott Dooley.
Good evening, Mayor Strain, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. Before you tonight is the first of two resolutions involving an IGA between the Arizona Department of Transportation and the City of Sierra Vista for the funding and design to construct two multi-use paths in the City of Sierra Vista. The first one being the Snyder Boulevard path that runs from State Route 92 to Avenida del Sol, and the second being Coronado from Carmelita to Tacoma Street. The previously approved IGA with ADOT that is being amended tonight was funded by Federal Highway Administration roadside enhancement funds. Since then, the Arizona Department of Transportation has asked the City of Sierra Vista to fund the construction of Snyder Boulevard with ARRA money, which is American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, in the amount of $515,000. The amended IGA still allows the reimbursement of design work relating to the Snyder Boulevard through the FHWA funding for both Coronado and the Snyder Road. With that, can I answer any questions for you tonight?
I noted that part of the multi-use path is already constructed along Snyder. Is that correct?
Not under this funding, sir. A portion of Snyder Boulevard, a multi-use path from Via Riata, I believe, to Avenida del Sol on the south side was constructed by City of Sierra Vista crews, and we utilized millings from the State Route 92 project. Did that with all in-house labor and recycled materials. It is not part of this particular grant or this project.
Okay. So you'll have paths on both sides of a portion of Avenida or Snyder.
That's correct, sir. There'll be a path all the way from 92 to Avenida del Sol on the north side, and then the portion we just discussed on the south side.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? It's unanimous. The next item is related. Mr. Blanchard, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Resolution 2009-086, an intergovernmental agreement with ADOT for the Snyder Boulevard between State Route 92 and Avenida del Sol multi-purpose path be approved.
Second.
Mr. Dooley.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is a new. This resolution is for a new IGA that covers the AAR funding for the Snyder Road construction project. Use of the funds will require additional documentation. However, because it is ARRA money, we do not have a match, a 5.7% match that we do have under the Federal Highway Administration funding. So that will save the City of Sierra Vista approximately $28,000 in that amount alone. Except for the additional documentation requirements, this project will be identical to funding and criteria that was under the Federal Highway Administration. Can I answer any additional questions?
Okay. Anybody? All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Dooley. Item number 9 is an IGA with Fort Huachuca. Mr. Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the Resolution 2009-087, approving an intergovernmental agreement with Fort Huachuca, be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Brush.
Thank you, Mayor Strain, members of council. This is an intergovernmental agreement with Fort Huachuca to reestablish pedestrian connection and trail connectivity between Garden Canyon Wash and Garden Canyon Linear Park, which is located just to the edge of my map right up in here, and connect down along the fort boundary back into the United States Forest Service land down in this area. And this really all started back in 1999 when the city and the fort and the Forest Service entered into an informal agreement to accomplish the same thing. And 2 gates were constructed, and you were able to access from Garden Canyon Linear Park up to Brown Canyon, utilizing Site Boston Road, which is the road that's on Fort Huachuca. And that was closed after 9/11, reopened for a short spell, and then closed again about 2 years ago. So during the Garden Canyon Linear Park planning process, a number of people expressed the desire to reestablish that corridor. And so we began working with the fort and with an entity called Cochise Trails Association, who are mapping trails within the Cochise County area. to see if we could reestablish some kind of a connection. So what the proposal would do would be similar to what was before, with the exception that the fort doesn't want to allow unlimited access into the fort area. So the intergovernmental agreement allows us to come through a gate, establish a 25-foot wide corridor with a second fence that parallels the existing fence, meander a trail through that corridor, and then back into the Forest Service in approximately this location, which is right off where the aerostat location is located. We began negotiations with Fort Huachuca subsequent to the linear park planning process, drafted the IGA, worked with Dan Ortega, who's the Director of Emergency Services, and have this before you now for your consideration. The fort is ready to approve this. Colonel Sturgeon is ready to approve it. They requested that the city consider it first. And we have received concurrence and strong support from Annette Chavez, who is the district ranger with the United States Forest Service. So everyone seems to be on board with this. If it goes forward this evening with you, we will proceed with having the trail designated as an Arizona State Trail, which opens the door for some grant opportunities. And we would use grants to actually construct both the fence and the trail through the corridor. And we do have someone here from Cochise Trails Association, Steve Sayway, who might be able to answer any other questions that you might have.
Okay. Mr. Sayway, have you comments you wish to make? If so, please come up to the microphone. And any council questions or comments? Mr. Hampton, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don, you mentioned that previously this path pretty well followed the St. Boston Road. Does that road still exist? Would that be inside that 25-foot corridor?
Councilmember Hampton, the road does still exist. The corridor would be actually between the road and the fence.
Oh, gotcha.
So the road remains intact. In fact, the fort expressed a desire to make sure that grading of the road could still occur without impacting the fence. So
Very
that was
good, thank you.
considered.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can remember when we were out walking around that area during the community input to the linear park, this was brought up, and I think the fact that this has come this far, this fast, is remarkable. I want to thank you and your staff for all that work on this. To get this far, this fast with the federal government is just light speed. Thank you.
Gentlemen, any comments prior to one member of the public addressing us? Anything you want to say, Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I would just like to say that I think it would benefit the community immensely. As Don mentioned, it was a connection at one time. And the benefit for trail users, if you start in Garden Canyon Linear Park, you can broaden your trail experience by going through the fort and then going through the National Forest, where it opens up a whole variety of trails. This would extend your trail experience. You could loop back a different way. You could construct a multi-trail hike or ride. And actually, for those folks that are interested in a real long distance experience, you could connect to the Arizona Trail, which goes across the state. So it's more recreational opportunities. We think it's a good partnership with the fort. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on it, too.